The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was the largest structure Jake had ever seen. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. Today, those clouds were dark and heavy, as if the building itself knew what was about to happen. Jake stood at the center of the hall, wearing his best diplomatic uniform. Behind him sat Lisa Grant, his chief advisor and Commander Sam Porter of the diplomatic vessel Horizon. Around them, in seats that rose like a mountain, sat the representatives of over 200 species. Most of them would not look at the humans. High Arbiter Land stood at the highest point of the hall. He was tall, with a body like an insect and eyes that showed no warmth. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke. "The Galactic Council has reviewed Earth's petition for full membership," Land said. "We have studied your species for 40 years. We have watched your wars, your conflicts, your endless fighting among yourselves." Jake kept his face calm. He had expected this. "It is the decision of this council that humanity is not ready for full membership," Land continued. "Your species shows dangerous emotional instability. Your rapid technological growth is concerning. You are too young, too wild, too unpredictable." Lisa Grant leaned forward in her seat. Her hands were shaking, but not with fear, with anger. "Furthermore," Land said, "the Council has voted to remove Earth's existing trade agreements. Human vessels will be restricted to their own solar system and the 3 colony worlds already established. Any violation of these restrictions will be met with immediate military response." A murmur went through the crowd. Even some of the alien representatives seemed surprised by how harsh the punishment was. Jake took a slow breath. He had spent 20 years as a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He had learned to control his emotions in the worst situations. This was one of those situations. "May I speak?" Jake asked. Land waved one of his long arms. "You may." Jake looked around the hall. He looked at the species who had voted against humanity. He looked at the few who had supported them. Then he looked directly at Land. "I want to thank the Council for their decision," Jake said. The hall went silent. This was not the response anyone had expected. "40 years ago we came to you with hope," Jake continued. "We thought we had found a family among the stars. We worked hard. We followed every rule. We passed every test. And still it was never enough." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today, you have taught humanity a valuable lesson. You have shown us that we can only depend on ourselves. You have shown us that kindness and hard work mean nothing to those who have already decided to hate us." Land's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat, Ambassador?" "No," Jake said. "It is a promise. You will come to regret this decision. Not because we will seek revenge, but because you have no idea what you have just united. For the first time in our history, every human on every world will stand together. You wanted to break us. Instead, you have made us whole." He turned to Lisa and Sam. "We are leaving." As they walked toward the exit, the hall remained silent. No one knew what to say. They had expected begging, anger, or tears. They had not expected calm acceptance and a quiet warning. Outside the hall, Lisa finally spoke. That was either very brave or very stupid. "Maybe both," Jake said. "Get me a secure channel to Earth. The President needs to hear this directly from me." 3 hours later, Jake sat in his quarters aboard the Horizon as the ship left Nexus Prime. On the screen in front of him, President Maria Santos listened to his report. She was a small woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had led Earth through 2 major crises already. This would be the 3rd. "So they want to put us in a cage," she said when Jake finished. "Yes, Madam President. They are afraid of us. They have seen how fast we grow, how quickly we adapt. They know that if they give us another 100 years, we will surpass them all." Maria nodded slowly. "Then we will give them something to truly fear, but not in the way they expect." She ended the call and immediately contacted her advisors. Within the hour, She had called an emergency meeting of every world leader on Earth and the colony worlds. The meeting lasted 6 hours. There were arguments, disagreements, and moments of anger. But when it was over, something remarkable had happened. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on a single course of action. They would not fight, not yet. They would smile and nod and follow the Council's rules. And in secret they would prepare. On Nexus Prime, High Arbiter Land celebrated his victory. He had stopped the human threat before it could grow too large. The other council members congratulated him on his wisdom. None of them noticed the quiet messages being sent between human ships. None of them saw the scientists being gathered, the plans being drawn, the factories being converted. None of them understood that they had not defeated humanity. They had awakened it. In a small bar on Earth, a group of old soldiers watched the news. They saw the Council's announcement. They saw the restrictions placed on their people. One of them, a man with gray hair and scars on his hands, raised his glass. "They think they have beaten us," he said. "They have no idea." The others raised their glasses in agreement. "To Earth," someone said. "To Earth," they all repeated. Outside the bar, the sun was setting. But for humanity, a new day was just beginning. The Council had made their ruling. They had tried to put humanity in chains, and in doing so, they had made the greatest mistake in galactic history. They had given 8 billion people a common enemy. They had given humanity a reason to unite. And humans, when they united, were capable of things no other species could imagine. Far away on Nexus Prime, Land slept peacefully, believing he had saved the galaxy from a dangerous species. He did not know that his decision would be remembered for thousands of years, not as a moment of wisdom, but as the beginning of the end for everything he had built. The verdict had been delivered. Now humanity would deliver its response. 10 years passed after the Council's ruling. To the rest of the galaxy, it seemed like humanity had accepted their defeat. Human ships stayed within their borders. Human diplomats smiled politely at every insult. Human merchants paid every unfair tax without complaint. The Council was pleased. They had broken the wild species from Earth. Lan often spoke of his great victory at diplomatic gatherings. Humanity, he said, had learned its place. He could not have been more wrong. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, in tunnels that did not appear on any map, Dr. Ben Carter stood before the largest laboratory ever built by human hands. Around him, 3,000 scientists worked day and night on projects that would change the galaxy forever. "Show me the new engine design," Ben said to his assistant. The young woman pulled up a hologram. It showed a ship engine unlike anything the Council had ever created. It was smaller, more efficient, and 3 times faster than the best alien technology. "We reverse-engineered it from the Eye Patrol ship we captured last year," she explained. "But we made it better, much better." Ben smiled. This was what humanity did. They did not just copy, they improved, they adapted, they made things their own. On Earth, Admiral Kate stood on the bridge of a warship that officially did not exist. It was hidden in a shipyard built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to any scanner the Council possessed. The ship was called the Dawn, and it was the first of a new class of vessels. Its weapons were more powerful than anything in the galaxy. Its shields could absorb enemy fire and turn it into energy. Its hull was made of materials that human scientists had invented just 3 years ago. "How many ships do we have now?" Kate asked her second in command. 412 combat vessels," he replied. "Another 200 in construction, all hidden across the asteroid belts of our 3 colony worlds." Kate nodded. It was not enough, not yet, but they had time. Meanwhile, in the heart of Council space, a man named Tony worked as a simple maintenance worker on a space station. No one noticed him. No one cared about the quiet human who fixed broken pipes and cleaned floors. This was exactly what Tony wanted. In truth, Tony was the best intelligence operative Earth had ever produced. For 8 years, he had been gathering information, making contacts, and learning the Council's deepest secrets. What he had discovered made him angry. The Council was not a fair government. It was a system built to keep certain species in power and others in chains. Young species were exploited for their resources and labor. Anyone who grew too strong was destroyed before they could become a threat. This was why they had ruled against Earth. Humanity was growing too fast. In just 400 years, they had gone from horses and swords to starships and colonies. The Council's own species had taken thousands of years to achieve the same progress. They looked at humanity and saw a future where humans would surpass them all. So they had decided to stop humanity before it was too late. Tony sent his reports to Earth through hidden channels. President Maria Santos read every one of them. With each report, her resolve grew stronger. "They are afraid of us," she told her advisors. "Good, they should be." Back on Mars, Dr. Ben Carter made a breakthrough that would change everything. His team had cracked the secret of instant communication across any distance. No more waiting for messages to travel through space. No more delays. Human ships could now coordinate perfectly, no matter how far apart they were. When Kate heard the news, she almost cried with joy. This single invention would give humanity an advantage that no other species had. In battle, human ships would move as one mind, one body, one unstoppable force. The years continued to pass. Human scientists made discovery after discovery. Human factories built ship after ship. Human soldiers trained in secret facilities, becoming the finest warriors in the galaxy. And still, the Council suspected nothing. Then, in the 10th year, something happened that almost revealed everything. A Council patrol ship stumbled upon one of the hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt of the colony world New Eden. The patrol captain saw the warships being built. He saw the weapons, the shields, the technology that should have been impossible for humans to possess. He immediately tried to send a message to the Council. The message never arrived. A human ship appeared out of nowhere, moving faster than the patrol captain had ever seen a vessel move. Before he could react, his weapons were offline. His engines were dead. His communications were silent. Commander Chris appeared on his screen. "You have seen things you should not have seen," Chris said calmly. "We are going to let you go, but you will carry a message to your masters." The patrol captain was shaking. "What message?" "Tell them we remember," Chris said. "Tell them we remember every insult, every restriction, every time they called us primitive. Tell them that when the time comes, we will show them what primitives can do." The patrol ship was released. The captain flew back to Council space as fast as his damaged engines could carry him. When he arrived and told his story, no one believed him. "Impossible," they said. "Humans did not have such technology. Humans were broken, defeated, harmless." The captain insisted he was telling the truth. The Council investigated his claims. They sent scout ships to search for the hidden shipyards. They found nothing. The humans had moved everything within hours of the patrol ship's escape. Land dismissed the captain as a fool who had been scared by shadows. The matter was forgotten. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, other species had heard the story. Species who had been oppressed by the Council for centuries. Species who had been waiting for someone to stand against their masters. They began to watch humanity with new eyes. And humanity watched back. The quiet years were ending. The time for hiding was almost over. Soon, the galaxy would learn what happens when you try to cage a species that was born to be free. Dr. Ben Carter stood in his laboratory, looking at the latest reports. They were ready. After 10 years of work, humanity was ready. He picked up his communicator and sent a simple message to Admiral. "Project Prometheus is complete. We can begin whenever you give the order." Kate read the message and smiled. She walked to the window of her hidden ship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council still believed they had won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The planet IV was dying. Its forests had been cut down. Its rivers had been poisoned. Its people, were starving in camps while Council mining ships stripped their world of every valuable resource. Elder High stood on a hill overlooking what had once been her village. Now it was a wasteland of mud and broken buildings. Her people, once proud and strong, were thin and sick. Children cried from hunger while their parents had nothing to give them. The Council had come to IV 60 years ago. They had promised progress and partnership. Instead, they had brought slavery and death. Elder, one of her advisors, said, approaching carefully, "Ships are coming." High looked up at the sky. She expected to see more Council vessels come to take whatever was left. Instead, she saw something different. The ships were shaped unlike any Council design. They were human ships. Commander Chris stood on the bridge of his vessel, the Pioneer, looking down at the ruined planet below. His crew had seen the reports. They had seen the images of starving children and poisoned water. Now they were seeing it with their own eyes. "Begin landing operations," Chris ordered. "Medical teams first, then food distribution. Engineering Corps will start on the water purification systems." His second officer looked at him with concern. "Sir, the Council will not like this. We are violating their territory." "I know," Chris said. "I am counting on it." The human ships landed in fields outside the camps. At first, they were afraid. They had learned to fear any visitors from the sky, but then they saw what the humans were carrying. Food, medicine, clean water, tools and seeds and building materials. Chris walked down the ramp of his ship and approached Elder High. He bowed his head in respect. "Elder, I am Commander Chris of Earth. We have come to help." High did not understand. "Help? What do you want in return?" "Nothing," Chris said. "We ask for nothing. Your people are suffering. We are here to end that suffering." High had lived for over 200 years. She had seen many things, but she had never seen a species offer help without wanting something in return. She did not know how to respond. Chris simply smiled. "Perhaps you will understand better when you see what we have brought." For 3 days, human teams worked without rest. They set up medical stations where doctors treated the sick. They built machines that cleaned the poisoned water. They distributed food to every family, making sure the children ate first. They watched in amazement. These humans worked harder than any species they had ever seen. They did not complain. They did not rest. They simply kept working until every person had been fed and every wound had been treated. Then the Council arrived. N was the Council's overseer for IV. He was a large reptilian creature with scales the color of blood and eyes full of cruelty. When he saw the human ships, he was furious. "This is Council territory," N broadcast to the human fleet. "You have no right to be here. Leave immediately or face military action." Chris answered calmly. "We are conducting a humanitarian mission. These people are dying. We will not abandon them." "They are Council property," N hissed. "What happens to them is none of your concern." "Every suffering being is our concern," Chris replied. "That is what it means to be human." N called for reinforcements. Within hours, 50 Council warships surrounded the human relief fleet. They demanded surrender. Chris refused. "Very well," N said. "You have chosen your fate." The Council ships opened fire. But the human ships did not explode. Instead, their shields absorbed every shot. Energy weapons that could destroy cities were swallowed by human technology and turned into harmless light. The Council ships fired again and again. Nothing worked. And through it all, the human relief teams kept working. They kept feeding the hungry. They kept healing the sick. They did not even look up at the battle happening above them. More human ships arrived. They formed a protective wall around the planet, shields overlapping to create an unbreakable barrier. Still, they did not fire back. And screamed orders at his fleet. They tried missiles, they tried particle beams, they tried ramming attacks. Nothing could break through the human shields. On the surface, a child approached a human doctor. She was small and thin, with large eyes full of wonder. "Why do you not fight back?" she asked. The doctor knelt down to look at her. "Because we did not come here to fight, we came here to help. The council wants us to be violent. We will not give them what they want." The child thought about this for a moment. "But what if they hurt you?" "Then they hurt us," the doctor said simply. "But we will still be here tomorrow, still helping your people. That is a victory they cannot take from us." The standoff lasted for 2 weeks. During that time, the human fleet never fired a single shot. They simply endured everything the council threw at them while continuing their humanitarian work. Footage of the confrontation spread across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched humans absorb attack after attack without fighting back. They watched human doctors working while explosions lit up the sky above them. They watched something they had never seen before, a species willing to suffer to protect strangers. Finally, the council ordered N to withdraw. The footage had become a disaster for them. Species across the galaxy were asking questions. Why were the humans being attacked for feeding the hungry? Why did the council treat them so badly? As the council ships retreated, Elder High approached Chris. Tears ran down her wrinkled face. "I do not understand," she said. "You risked everything for us. You could have been destroyed. Why?" Chris took her hands gently. "Because this is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand with those who have no one else to stand with them. But we have nothing to offer you. We are a broken people." "You are not broken," Chris said firmly. "You are survivors, and now you are our friends. That is worth more than any resource or trade agreement." High wept openly. In 200 years, no one had ever spoken to her with such kindness. As the pioneer prepared to leave, a message arrived on Chris' private channel. It was from Earth Intelligence. 12 species have contacted us in secret. They want to meet. They want to know if humans will help them too. Chris smiled as he read the message. The first domino had fallen. The Council's coalition of fear was beginning to crack. And humanity was just getting started. The Moon of was a small, forgotten rock in a system that no one cared about. It had no valuable resources, no strategic importance, no reason for anyone to visit. This made it perfect for the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Cole arrived first. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a patient smile. He had spent 30 years as a diplomat, but nothing had prepared him for what he was about to do. Within hours, ships began arriving from every direction. They came in secret, using routes that avoided council patrols. Each ship carried representatives from species that had been oppressed, exploited, or ignored by the council for centuries. The meeting room was a natural cave, lit by simple lights that the human team had installed. There were no fancy decorations, no symbols of power, just stone walls and beings who were tired of being afraid. Cole looked around the room. He counted representatives from 30 different species. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and covered in fur. Some had wings, some had tentacles, some had bodies made of living crystal. They were all different, but they all shared one thing: hope. "Thank you for coming," began. "I know the risk each of you has taken. If the council learns you are here, there will be consequences." "We know the risks," a deep voice replied. It came from War Chief K of a massive creature with gray skin and tusks like daggers. His people were warriors, famous throughout the galaxy. But the council had betrayed them 50 years ago, taking there through legal tricks and corrupt judges. "They have waited long for this moment," K continued. "We have watched humans. At first we thought you were weak. Your bodies are soft. Your lives are short. But what you did at IV showed us something different. He stood up, towering over everyone in the room. You stood against the council without fighting. You protected strangers without asking for payment. This is not weakness. This is a different kind of strength. Respect this strength. Another voice spoke up. It was softer, like water flowing over stones. Queen of the sat in a special tank filled with the liquid her aquatic species needed to survive. My people are dying, she said. The council forces us to host their factories. The waste poisons our oceans. Our children are born sick. Soon there will be no one left. She paused, her large eyes full of pain. When we asked the council for help, they laughed at us. When humans heard our story, they sent scientists the very next day. They are already working on ways to clean our waters. We did not do this to earn your loyalty, said carefully. We did it because it was right. That is why you have our loyalty, replied. One by one, other species shared their stories. The council had taken their planets, killed their leaders, stolen their resources, destroyed their cultures. For hundreds of years, they had suffered in silence because there was no one to help them. Now there was. Director Nick Palmer, head of Earth's intelligence network, stood up and activated a hologram. It showed council ships gathering at a massive space station. This is what we are facing, Nick said. Our sources tell us that the council is planning something they call the Earth Quarantine. They intend to surround our solar system with a blockade. No ships in or out. They will slowly starve us until we surrender or die. The room went quiet. Even Kay looked concerned. When asked. 6 months, maybe less. They are gathering the largest fleet in galactic history. Then we have 6 months to prepare, said. He turned to the assembled representatives. I want to make something very clear. Earth does not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to replace one group of masters with another. What we want is simple, freedom for all species to choose their own futures. Pretty words, Kay said, but how do we know you mean them? Nodded, expecting this question. Because we will share everything with you. Our technology, our weapons, our knowledge, all of it. We will make you our equals, not our servants. The room erupted in surprised conversations. No species in the history of the council had ever shared their technology freely. It was always used as leverage, as a tool for control. You would give us weapons that could be used against you, Kay asked, disbelief in his voice. Yes, said simply, because if we do not trust each other, we have already lost. Over the following hours, the details were worked out. They would call themselves the Free Species Alliance. There would be no single leader. Decisions would be made together, with each species having an equal voice. Human engineers would train teams from each species on the new technology. Human doctors would help those who were sick. Human soldiers would fight alongside their new allies when the time came. We will not strike first, said as the meeting came to an end. We are not conquerors, but when the council comes for us, we will be ready, and we will stand together. Kay walked over to and placed a massive hand on his shoulder. The weight nearly made the human fall. They have a saying, the warrior chief said. True allies are forged in fire. We have not yet faced the fire together, but when we do, you will find thee at your side. Queen swam to the edge of her tank. They have never been warriors, but we will support you however we can. You saved our children. We will never forget this. One by one, each representative pledged their support. 30 species, united by human kindness and a shared dream of freedom. As the meeting ended and ships began departing, Cole stood alone in the cave. He thought about the responsibility that now rested on humanity's shoulders. They had given these species hope. If humans failed, that hope would die. His communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Kate. How did it go? She asked. Better than we hoped. 30 species have joined us. There was silence on the other end. Then Kate spoke, her voice thick with emotion. All those years of hiding, preparing, wondering if it would be enough, and now here we are. Here we are, agreed. Kate, the council will come for us soon. Are we ready? We are, she said firmly. Let them come. They think they will find a broken species hiding in their corner of space. They will find an alliance of free peoples who refuse to be slaves. Smiled. Then let us give them a fight they will never forget. Outside, the last ship departed from the moon of. The cave returned to darkness and silence. But something had changed. A spark had been lit in the darkness of the galaxy. The Council had spent centuries building their empire on fear and exploitation. They had crushed every species that tried to stand against them. But they had never faced anything like humanity before. And they had never faced 30 species who had finally found the courage to say no. The fire was coming. And when it arrived, it would burn away the old order and leave something new in its place. Something better. Something free. The Nexus Gate was the largest hyperspace corridor in the galaxy. Every major trade route passed through it. Every fleet that wanted to reach Earth had to come this way. The Council had chosen it as the place where they would finally destroy humanity. High Arbiter Land stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Justice. Around him, 10,000 Council warships stretched across space like a metal ocean. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Today we end the human threat forever, Lan announced to his officers. They have caused enough trouble. They have turned other species against us. But when we crush their fleet and blockade their worlds, the galaxy will remember who truly rules. His officers cheered. Victory seemed certain. The humans had perhaps a few hundred ships at most. They could not possibly stand against such overwhelming force. Then the Nexus Gate activated. Ships began pouring through. Human ships, yes, but also warships with their distinctive red hulls. Vessels that moved like water. Transports modified with human weapons. Ships from 30 different species, all flying together under a single banner. Lan's celebration died in his throat. His scanners counted the enemy vessels. 15,000 ships. Impossible, he whispered. On the bridge of the flagship Horizon, Admiral Kate watched the Council fleet with steady eyes. Jake stood beside her, serving as civilian liaison for the battle. He was older now, his hair gray, but his eyes still held the same fire they had shown in the Council chamber 13 years ago. Open a channel to the Council flagship, Kate ordered. Lan's face appeared on the screen. He looked exactly as he had on the day he had condemned humanity. Proud, arrogant, certain of his own superiority. High Arbiter, Kate said calmly. I am Admiral of the Free Species Alliance. I am offering you terms for surrender. Lan laughed. Surrender? You dare demand our surrender? I am not demanding. I am offering. Stand down your fleet. Allow free elections for Council membership. End the exploitation of developing species. If you do these things, not a single ship needs to be destroyed today. You are insane, Lan spat. You primitive creatures think you can threaten us. We ruled this galaxy before your species learned to walk upright. Kate remained calm. Is that your final answer? Attack, Lan ordered his fleet. Destroy them all. The Battle of Nexus Gate began. Council ships surged forward, weapons firing in every direction. They expected the Alliance ships to scatter and run. Instead, the Alliance fleet moved as one body, every ship knowing exactly where to be and what to do. Human communication technology linked every Alliance vessel together. Orders traveled instantly across any distance. Where the Council fleet was a mob of individual ships, the Alliance was a single organism with 15,000 parts. Warriors led the charge, their heavy warships crashing through Council formations like hammers. Behind them, human cruisers provided precise fire support, taking out key targets with surgical accuracy. Ships moved between the larger vessels, their fluid movements confusing Council targeting systems. Lan watched in horror as his fleet began to fall apart. Human shields were absorbing weapons that should have destroyed them. Human weapons were cutting through Council armor like it was paper. Every tactic he tried was countered before he could execute it. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. No one had an answer. On the horizon, Jake made his move. He had prepared for this moment for 13 years. During his time as ambassador and through Tony's intelligence work, he had gathered evidence of every crime the Council had committed, every species they had exploited, every leader they had murdered, every world they had destroyed. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Jake ordered, Council fleet included. The evidence went out to every ship in both fleets. Council captains watched recordings of their own leaders ordering atrocities. They saw documents proving that species had been deliberately kept poor and weak. They saw the truth of the government they had served. The effect was immediate. Dozens of Council ships stopped firing. Their captains refused to continue fighting for a regime built on lies and cruelty. Some turned their weapons on ships that were still loyal to land. The battle became chaos, but it was chaos that favored the Alliance. Within 6 hours, it was over. The Council fleet was shattered. 3,000 ships destroyed, 2,000 captured, the rest scattered and running. The Alliance had lost fewer than 500 vessels. Land's flagship drifted dead in space, its engines destroyed, its weapons silent. Alliance Marines boarded through breached airlocks, moving carefully through the dark corridors. They found Lan on his bridge, surrounded by the bodies of officers who had tried to flee. He stood alone, staring out at the wreckage of his fleet. Jake entered the bridge behind the Marines. He walked slowly until he stood face to face with the being who had tried to destroy humanity. "It seems you have won," Lan said. His voice was empty, defeated. "Yes," Jake said simply. "How?" Lan demanded. "How did you become so powerful so quickly? It should have taken you centuries to reach this level." Jake considered the question carefully before answering. "You made us stand alone, so we learned to stand together. You tried to break us, so we became unbreakable. You called us primitive, so we proved we could surpass you. You ruled against Earth, Lan. That was your final mistake." Lan was taken away in restraints. He would face trial for his crimes, judged by the species he had oppressed for so long. 1 year later, Jake returned to the Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime. The building had not changed, but everything else had. The Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place stood the Free Galactic Assembly, where every species had an equal voice. The seats that had once been filled with corrupt officials and cruel masters now held representatives chosen by their own people. Jake took his place among them, not at the top, not at the center, but as an equal among equals. This was what humanity had fought for, not power, not revenge, but fairness. President Maria Santos, watching from Earth, sent him a simple message: "We did it." "We all did it," Jake replied, "together." As the first session of the new assembly began, Jake looked around at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some had been enemies. Some had been strangers. Now they were partners in building something new. The galaxy had learned a lesson about humanity. They were not dangerous because they could fight. They were dangerous because they never gave up. They protected the weak. They stood with the oppressed. And they never, ever forgot. Outside the assembly hall, the sun was rising over Nexus Prime. It was a new day for the galaxy, a day built on freedom, equality, and hope. Jake smiled as he watched the light spread across the ancient city. The Council had thought humanity's heart was their greatest weakness. They never understood that their hearts were always their greatest strength. And now, finally, the galaxy understood too.